Hey guys, before anything else, I opened up a coffee. I'll link it here and in the description below. I left a free video up there on the first movie that ever scared me. If you like what you see, consider buying me a coffee. If not, then it's not a problem. Enjoy the video on coffee and enjoy this video coming up. Up until late 2018, I was never much of a horror movie fan. And yeah, say what you will about me, but I admit it. I am a jumpy, squeamish, and nervous ex-Catholic schoolgirl with a fear of demons, crosses, and possessed nuns, which makes my fascination with Stephen King books and their on-screen adaptations both unexpected and highly amusing for plenty of real horror fans out there. My secret to building a good amount of horror tolerance, which, eventually inspired enough courage in me to try the godless Jordan Peele movies Get Out on Us, but that's a video for another day, was to avoid King's movies which featured classic monsters and jump scares. Because those movies, however well made or critically acclaimed they may have been, were made to trigger my anxiety and jitteriness, and even some Catholic guilt which I am not ready to face. So instead, I focused more on King's psychological horror, which some may argue is worse than Mr. Pennywise over here in the long run, but instead creeps and lingers instead of jumps. To boil this video down to a very compact thesis statement, my golden trio of King movies just give me more to think about than to be scared about, and that's how I'm always not hiding under the blanket before the credits roll. So, in the event that you are as scared as I am during Halloween, let me introduce you to Ika's list of non-horror, horror Stephen King movies to watch on the 31st. Relatively spoiler-free. This is the movie and the book that made me a Stephen King fan. And I'm not saying it's the best King movie and book in existence, and there's a lot to be said when you do a formalist dissection of the novel, but I personally found that the movie was so layered and poignant in this age of Me Too. Without giving any of the juicy details away, Geralds Game is about a woman named Jessie Burlingame, who, after her husband dies in the middle of an attempt to be kinky, finds herself handcuffed to the bed in an abandoned cabin with no phone, no caretaker, and no way out. In my opinion, this story is one of Stephen King's best character studies, as he dove into the inner workings of guilt and childhood trauma, specifically the trauma of a sexual assault victim. This is both a weakness and a strength. As King is a male author, and because the movie's director Mike Flanagan is also a male, Gerald's Game indulges in female violence at times. A lot of the scenes were very graphic in nature, as is the nature of most Stephen King novels. And when you add that to Carla Gugino's masterfully bone-chilling performance, it might be triggering for certain women and trauma victims. However, while there is validity in that argument, I personally don't find the more graphic scenes to be that much of a problem. Because sexual assault and the aftermath of it are absolutely horrific, and the movie manages to convey that to the audience with a melting pot of gore and disturbing horror elements. At the same time, there's more to the story than the simpleton message of sexual assault is bad, so a statement is still made, and the assault is not for nothing. Where this movie shines is in the way it managed to take a source material where most, if not all of the conflict happens internally, and translate it in a way that's appropriate for its medium. The novel is very much Jessie's stream of consciousness, with very little action happening. Well, you'll have to see it for yourself. If you're already a fan of Gerald's Game, you may want to give its sister novel a go. Dolores Claiborne happens within the same universe as Gerald's Game, with both stories being connected by one scene in the two novels. In that sense, Dolores is thematically the same as Gerald's Game, except it's less gruesome, more emotional, and removed from the direct trauma of being sexually assaulted. This psychological thriller and drama film focuses on the strained relationship between Dolores and her daughter, and how they repair a relationship broken because of shared trauma from a common abuser. While not a tense, gory, in-your-face bottle story like Gerald's Game was, I find that Dolores was amazing at getting under your skin, because the plot is far more realistic, yet still equally dismaying. which leaves viewers with a deeper sense of dread and a sobering look at the patriarchal family system. However, as a book adaptation, fans of King's work might be thrown off by the lack of intimacy and time spent with Dolores. And while yes, a lot of this can be attributed to the change of medium and the cutting of all of Dolores' internal monologue, there's some blame to be put on the shift of character focus. Selena St. George, Dolores' daughter and supporting character in the novel, is now the main protagonist of the story, making the movie less about the struggles of a housewife and a mother and more about a rocky mother-daughter relationship. Nevertheless, it still makes for a heartfelt movie about women, shared trauma, and overcoming misogyny. When it comes to horror movie recommendations, Misery is probably my one non-Jordan Peele go-to answer. Having been unable to stomach the more gruesome and traditional King movies, and yes, I am talking about the first 20 minutes of It Part 1, never did I feel braver than I did watching an hour and a half of Kathy Bates torturing a helpless author without flinching. Misery revolves around Paul Sheldon, best-selling alcoholic author who had just murdered the popular protagonist of his beloved romance series in pursuit of a more diverse and crass writing career. After a particularly bad car accident in Colorado, he finds himself in the clutches of Misery Chastain's #1 fan, Annie Wilkes. With Paul left helpless in a guest room with 2 mutilated legs and a growing painkiller addiction, Misery easily becomes one of the most claustrophobia-inducing movies I have ever seen, making me breathless and anxious in the same way I, when I was 7, felt watching The Chamber of Secrets in the cinema for the very first time. And while that's the most I want to say about Misery so as not to give any of the good bits away, I do want to talk about the controversy that surrounded the novel's release. I know that this essay is meant to be a horror movie recommendation list, but there's just so much more to appreciate and unpack when you learn King's state of mind and his frustrations with fan entitlement. I believe this next part will actually enhance your viewing experience. So, here you go. Stephen King wrote this novel at a particularly tense time. This was his big return from a very short-lived retirement, and therefore propelled this novel into best-selling fame. What surprised fans was the way the novel read as a love-hate letter to them. It was around this period of his life that King found it difficult to write because of the constant backlash he was receiving from fans for attempting to expand his horizons. Trapped inside what I'd call the unbreakable castle of horror novels that he built for himself, he decided to make a statement through Annie Wilkes. Not that it was completely devoid of self-awareness. Paul Sheldon is very much a reflection of everything wrong with King. He's an egotistical, self-absorbed, crass, slightly misogynistic, bitter alcoholic who constantly spirals into periods of self-hate and anger. He's crazy for pandering to Annie Wilkes, but without her he'd be dead, and with her he'd be miserable. Just as King was with his fans at the time of writing Misery. In short, it's a great movie with a fantastic piece of history behind it that any King or horror fan should enjoy on the 31st. So there you go everyone, 3 fantastic non-horror horror King movies you should watch this October 31st. If you've seen any of the films and have your own opinions, please do share them in the comments below. But be gracious to those who might be scrolling and add a spoiler alert. By the way, if you like what you've been seeing in this channel, please head over to my Ko-fi account as I said earlier in the start of the video. But you don't have to, it's just like a little thing that I set up over there. But don't forget to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so all notifications are on so you'll never miss any of my videos. Hope you're having a spooky day and see you all next time. Thanks for watching and happy Halloween! Bye!